What's up, everybody, and welcome to No Huddle Fantasy Sports. I'm here to give you the no gimmick, no filler, straight to the point, season-long fantasy football information to help you be prepared for upcoming drafts. As we enter the single busiest fantasy football draft weekend of the year, and with the start of the 2019 NFL season just around the corner, there's really no better time than right now to cover your draft day strategy. In this video, we're going to cover the quarterback position and who you should and shouldn't be looking for in your upcoming drafts. So stay tuned. Look, let's just stop pretending that the quarterback position is a worthwhile investment in season-long fantasy football. If this is a hot take, so be it. But in reality, quarterbacks, they're just really not that important in season-long fantasy football. You can do just as well picking up a quarterback or a couple of quarterbacks late in the draft as you can selecting one of the stud quarterbacks early on. And before you have an aneurysm listening to this, I do realize Pat Mahomes lit the world on fire last year. And if you had him, there's a real solid chance you finished the year on a high note. But in general, I challenge you, and I stand by the fact that that was more of an exception than it is a rule. The QB position, contrary to much belief, is really not a difficult position to draft for. If you stick to a just basic strategy, you can be successful. That overall strategy really isn't something new. It might be a modern strategy to sit and wait on quarterbacks, but if you look around, if you go to websites, pick up magazines on fantasy football, listen to some of the experts in their podcasts, that is a strategy that yields results. It's simply a winning strategy. Basically, let others make mistakes by picking quarterbacks up early in the draft while you feast on all the available and more valuable skill position players. With that being said, let's still recap last year and talk about some of the general position notes and strategy. Pat Mahomes, he really did take the NFL by storm in 2019. He set the single-season fantasy football record at the quarterback position with an outstanding 417 standard points. In comparison, Matt Ryan, who finished as QB2 last year, was 63 points behind Pat Mahomes. That's insane. But it's not necessarily the points that separated Mahomes last year and his fantasy owners and teams. It's the fact that he went off draft boards as QB16, meaning he was the 16th selected quarterback if he went at all in drafts and managed to put up that remarkable historical season. Teams that won championships with Mahomes, they benefited from him tearing up the position and really the NFL the entire year. But they also benefited from not having to draft a QB early and filling out their roster with other positions. This is the important part. This is what made selecting Pat Mahomes last year such a benefit. And that's really the lesson here, and that should be your goal. It's finding value at the QB position. The QB position is the highest scoring position each and every year, regardless of who you have. You don't want to select Mahomes in the 4th round. You want Mahomes in the 10th round. Will it happen? Absolutely not, and that's okay. You're still setting yourself up to have a better team by sitting and waiting. Just look at the stats in general. QB2 and QB10 were separated by simply 75 points last year. The variance is so low at the QB position compared to other positions. Meaning, you're not losing a ton of ground waiting and picking up a QB later. In fact, you're probably gaining an edge because of the other positions you picked up earlier while others were taking QBs. The NFL is now set up for quarterbacks. That's why you see the 15th ranked quarterback putting up 263 points when the equivalent running back 15 or wide receiver 15 is nearly 100 points less than them. Considering availability, roster spots, their low variance, and basically the high floor that all quarterbacks have in the NFL, there's no need to draft quarterbacks early. I start personally looking for quarterbacks around 7 or 8. It's more of a flow of the draft type of strategy more than these are my guys and this is the round I'll target them. And so usually a waterfall, a couple of guys start falling. Mahomes will go, Rodgers will go, those types of players will fall off the board rather quickly. There'll be a lag, and then some other quarterbacks will start coming. That's when you start considering who's available and who you should be taking. This leads us perfectly into our do not draft list. So going into 2019, there's a number of quarterbacks you want to avoid, basically based on everything I just said. They're getting drafted entirely too high. The points that they're going to get you are not significant enough to justify where they're getting drafted versus guys later in the draft. Obviously, the first guy that sticks off the page, Pat Mahomes. He's ADP 1 this year as a quarterback and the 19th overall pick. Think about that. He's going, at times, in a 10-person draft at the end of the second round. That's just insane, considering you're giving up some RB1s and wide receiver 1s just to take him that high. And it's really not worth it. You have other guys here. Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, both of whom are going in the 4th and 5th round. Baker Mayfield, 5th quarterback off the board, going in the 5th, 6th round. Drew Brees, Tom Brady. All these guys, the same situation, the same explanation applies. Don't waste early draft picks on these guys. Start considering quarterbacks after you see these guys go off the board. In the meantime, focus on running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. But don't be an idiot. If you're in the 7th round and Pat Mahomes is still sitting around, obviously take him. I'm not saying these guys don't have the talent, they won't perform, they're bust or anything like that. I'm just saying that their ADP is too high to be considered relative to the position as a whole. If these guys slip and start coming down the board, eat them up. But as they stand now, sit and wait. I do want to throw one other thing out there. All of this information, the strategy I'm giving you, throw it out the window if for some reason you're playing in an unorthodox type of league, a 2-quarterback league. They're becoming more and more popular. They're fun. But in 2-quarterback leagues, the quarterback position becomes the single most important position. So, if you're in that type of league, yes, all these guys, you want a Mahomes and a Watson together. That's going to win you a league. All this information I'm talking about is based upon a standard, typical, original style format where you only start one quarterback and it's standard scoring. So, rolling right along here. If those are the guys we're avoiding, well, who are we actively trying to target in these drafts? Who are the guys we're considering as we get into those later rounds? We start off with Matt Ryan, which is kind of funny because you're probably not going to get him later in the draft. But he's worth mentioning, and I'll tell you why. His ADP right now is the 4th quarterback, around the 56th pick. So you're seeing Matt Ryan, on average, go in the 5th to 6th round, maybe a little bit earlier in bigger leagues. To me, this is undervalued. He finished as QB2 last year, as I mentioned, behind Pat Mahomes. Ryan had a great 2018 season, but for whatever reason, with all the changes in Green Bay, people are more willing to take Aaron Rodgers, and I just don't understand it. Matt Ryan enters 2019 in arguably a better situation than last year. His offensive line should be improving. He has elite skill position players all around him. Whether that's Julio Jones, Ridley, Freeman, there's no arguing that Matt Ryan has the weapons he needs to succeed and now should have a much improved offensive line. But the biggest change for Ryan going into 2019 is that he's getting a new offensive coordinator in Dirk Koetter, if I pronounced that correctly. In most situations, this would probably worry me, especially with the quarterback position. But this is a guy that Matt Ryan has worked with in the past. They have a history together. Dirk has served as offensive coordinator for the Falcons. I believe it was from 2012 to 2014. So it's not a new relationship, and it's not something we should necessarily worry about. And in fact, Matt Ryan may actually benefit from. So with all that being said, if you're going to reach for a quarterback, if I'm going to select any of the guys at the top there, which I'm not, Matt Ryan would be my target. If I see him slipping later, he's the guy I want. Up next, we have Jared Goff for the LA Rams. Goff in 2018 led one of the league's most prolific offenses to the Super Bowl. He plays under head coach Sean McVay, one of the brightest offensive minds in football, who continues to help Goff improve season over season. Couple that with the fact that he plays with arguably the best offensive weapons in the league, or collection of weapons, I should say, whether that's Woods, Cooper Kupp, Cooks, or Gurley, there's no denying that the Rams are just stacked on offense. Goff is exactly the value type of quarterback we're looking for in our drafts with that sit and wait type of strategy. He's currently going around ADP 14 quarterback or the 115th pick, but offers so much upside. In 2018, he finished the season pretty poorly, but the fact that he played 3/4 of the season at an insane pace in an insane offense, he still finished QB7. So basically, if you're getting him as the 14th quarterback off the board, there's a high probability he's going to finish as a top 10 quarterback. High tempo offense, high scoring, great head coach, offensive-minded system, and playing with some of the best weapons. Goff, in my mind, is the best value quarterback you can get later in the draft. Skipping down the list a little bit, we have a couple of other guys. We have Big Ben for the Steelers and Lamar Jackson for the Ravens, both playing in the same division. Big Ben last year actually had a pretty great season in terms of fantasy. He finished third among all quarterbacks with a massive 341 points. The big thing with Big Ben, no pun intended, is that he gets massive volume. In 2018, he led the league in yards, attempts, and completions. He also plays behind one of the best offensive lines in football, and really has some underrated weapons relative to the league. I know he lost Le'Veon Bell last year, but if 2018 was any indication, he really succeeded without him. James Conner stepped up, is a certified stud, an RB1, going off the board pretty early in drafts. He also lost Antonio Brown. A lot of people say this is going to result in a big step back for Big Ben, and that's probably why he's going so late in drafts. He's ADP right now as a 13th quarterback off the board, the 113th pick. With all this said, he still offers massive upside. He can finish as a top 5 quarterback just like he did last year. His weapons in Juju Smith-Schuster, a certified star or upcoming star, if anything. He added Moncrief. James Washington looks like a stud in preseason. And Vance McDonald at tight end, arguably the most athletic tight end Ben's had in his career. I think he has the weapons to succeed. He has the offensive line, the history. Everything's there for some major upside and major value with Big Ben. Sticking with the AFC North, we have Lamar Jackson of the Ravens up next, who is easily my favorite target at the quarterback position going into 2019. I don't think you're going to find another guy in this draft, maybe over the next couple of years, that offers quite the same upside as Lamar Jackson. Quite frankly, we might be dealing with the next Michael Vick in terms of fantasy production, and I don't think that's out of this world to say. You're looking at a guy that likes to run the ball, in an offense that wants him to run the ball. This offseason, the Ravens basically reconfigured their entire offense and tailored it for Lamar Jackson and his abilities. He offers solid floor and big upside, all because of his legs. If you look at his game log last year, he was continuously, in his starts, pressing 100 yards rushing. That's out of a quarterback. So it's not out of the question to expect 100 yards rushing to 250 yards passing each and every game. Throwing a rushing touchdown and a passing touchdown, and his floor is insane, and the upside even bigger. For a guy that's going ADP as the 16th quarterback off the board, around the 13th, 14th round, I really don't think you can get much better than Lamar Jackson. They added weapons in the offseason at the wide receiver position to help him. He set the single-season rushing record last year for quarterbacks in less than half a season. And in general, I really think that the throwing concerns, the accuracy, all of that is just a little over-exaggerated. He was one of the youngest quarterbacks in the league last year, yet still led the Ravens to the playoffs and became the youngest quarterback to start a playoff game in the NFL's history. All reports out of the offseason is that Lamar Jackson and the Ravens worked on improving his passing skills. But the big positive here is that Lamar Jackson and the Ravens face, on paper, one of the easiest schedules for quarterbacks in 2019. Their current strength of schedule preseason is ranked 5th in the league, meaning that it's the 5th easiest schedule for quarterbacks. In reality, it's simply just all positives for Lamar Jackson entering 2019. If all goes to plan, You could realistically grab Lamar Jackson super late in your drafts and have a quarterback with top 5 potential upside all season long. The only warning I would give is the fact that he does run the ball a lot. It's wise to take somebody else alongside him. You just never know if and when he could get injured. Rounding out the list here, we have 2 guys that we can target that I have little doubt are going to literally blow their average draft position out of the water. And that's Jameis Winston of the Tampa Bay Bucks and Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. It seems like every year Jameis Winston is talked about a good bit as a sleeper, even a top 15, top 10 guy in the Tampa Bay offense. One reason or another, he's disappointed in the past, but I do truly think this year's different. A big reason, similar to other guys I've talked about, is there's a coaching change. He's dealing with Bruce Arians now, who, if you don't know, has a long history of successful quarterback play. Coupled with that, you're dealing with a very, very favorable early schedule and schedule in general for the Tampa Bay Bucks passing attack. Strength of schedule preseason right now has them ranked as 7, a pretty easy schedule in general. On top of that, you're dealing with a weak run game and a really, really poor defense in Tampa Bay. Basically, with that, we know one thing. They're going to have to throw the ball and throw the ball a lot to stay competitive in games. Winston has also surrounded himself with some really, really nice weapons. Whether it's Mike Evans, O.J. Howard, or even Goodwin, who seems to be everybody's favorite sleeper wide receiver this year, Jameis Winston is in a really good spot for success this year and really has a lot to prove. I expect him to blow his average draft position out of the water this year and really climb up the boards as a top 15, possibly even top 10 quarterback in 2019. Following him, we have Josh Allen. And it's funny because Josh Allen is kind of a poor man's Lamar Jackson to me this season. He is a super athletic guy that certainly can run the ball. Buffalo, unfortunately, just hasn't put the best offense around him. He was young, obviously, last year in his rookie year. Kind of got thrown in with the dogs without much support. But his rushing numbers and the ability to do things with his legs really makes him valuable. And right now, he is one of the last quarterbacks to go off the board, if he goes at all. But I am almost certain he's going to be on somebody's roster at the end of the year, simply because of the high ceiling he offers. A little stat that kind of sticks out is he actually was the top quarterback from weeks 12 through 17, meaning he put up the most points in that series of 5 weeks. More points than Mahomes, anybody else. That is the ceiling Josh Allen offers. If they did right and they made that offense better, which supposedly they did, he has massive upside this year, at least considering where he's getting drafted. Keep Josh Allen on your target board. If you're looking for a quarterback late with some upside, he's certainly one of those guys. Well, that wraps up our 2019 rankings, draft targets, and everything else related to the quarterback position. Just remember, the key to all of this is being patient at the quarterback position. I truly think the best approach, the best strategy in your drafts is to sit and wait. Target guys that are going later in the draft that offer upside. Overall, I hope this video was helpful to you guys and useful for your upcoming drafts. As always, please give this video a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and feel free to comment below if you have any additional picks or targets you like going to 2019 drafts. Outside of that, good luck this year.